Welcome back to the Omnibus Cafe. My name's Kevin, and today we're going to talk about my favorite run on Thor, the J. Michael Straczynski and Kieron Gillen run. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our awesome content. Grab your cup of coffee, and let's check out this book. All right, here we have Thor by J. Michael Straczynski and Kieron Gillen. This is the reprint, and I think one of only, I believe, 2 times where Marvel has reprinted an omnibus and added content to it. Initially, this was just the JMS stuff, but they added Siege and the Kieron Gillen stuff. This is a thick boy, a little over 1,100 pages, but lightning strikes twice. Now, before we dig into this, I highly recommend, if you've never read any Thor, to somehow digitally or otherwise read the Avengers Disassembled tie-in, Thor Ragnarok. So Thor in this book decides that instead of fighting this endless circle of Ragnarok, he decides to just kind of let it happen. Let Asgard and its people die and finally rest and stop this endless cycle of death and fighting. So Thor dies in this story. Asgard is no more. And he's gone from publishing for 3 years, which based on Marvel's habit of killing and resurrecting characters is pretty impressive. But let's take the dust jacket off this book because we are not animals in the cafe. All right, let's dig into this thing. So a lot is happening in this book. We start off with Fantastic Four, which JMS is also writing. Then we get right into the relaunched Thor by J. Michael Straczynski and Olivier Coipel. More Thor. We get renumbered to Thor 600. We get a cool Stan Lee written issue called To Asgard Forever. Welcome Back Thor. We get Dark Reign, the Cabal, which is in a lot of collections because it's kind of important to what's happening here. We get an annual by Peter Milligan, and then we switch over to the Kieron Gillen run. And then we go into the event, the crossover Siege, and then one of my favorite books in Siege is the Loki story, and we'll get into that. And then Kieron Gillen kind of finishes out this book. So again, we start with a couple issues of Fantastic Four, which was also being written by JMS at this time. And crazy to think about this, but JMS at one point is writing Thor, Fantastic Four, and The Amazing Spider-Man. So we see Doom in hell, or in this void. And you'll have to read the Fantastic Four arc to find out exactly what was going on there. But while he's in this space, he sees Mjolnir flying through this void. And Doom, of course, always wanting power, tries to grab onto it. When he tries to grab onto it, it pulls Mjolnir and Doom out of this void and back to Earth. And it finds them in the plains of Oklahoma. And go figure, Doom's not worthy. So then we get into this Thor book and we learn, Thor died in the Ragnarok story 3 years prior, and we have not seen him since. Another character we've not seen in a long time is Donald Blake, his, I don't want to say alter ego, but kind of his secret identity from way back. But Thor's in this void, and we, slowly learn how it is that Thor comes back to the land of the living. And he comes back through Donald Blake. Now, Donald Blake is kind of called to Oklahoma because that's where Mjolnir sits. And the town of Oklahoma throughout this entire run is a big part of the story. And it remains a big part of Thor storytelling into even the next omnibus by Matt Fraction. So like I said, Thor's been gone for a while. He's missed Avengers Disassembled, which saw the Avengers team break up. He missed the Civil War and the Superhuman Registration Act that follows. He missed the death of Captain America. So he's kind of coming into a world that's kind of confusing to him. And I'm going to put up the spoiler alert because this is one of my favorite issues of comics. But as Thor's back on Earth, he's kind of looking, where's the rest of the Asgardians? And he learns that their souls are essentially trapped in bodies of humans. And so he's searching for them. And Again, one of my favorite issues ever. Iron Man, who is now the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. after the Civil War and the leader of the 50 State Initiative, shows back up and says, "Welcome back, Thor. We need to talk." And, he kind of assumes their relationship's still friendly. And so Iron Man's just kind of talking circles around Thor, and Thor's listening. But Thor, in the short time that he's been back, kind of learned what Tony Stark and Reed Richards did with his genetic material during the Civil War and what they've done to their friends. And so Thor's had enough. He's like, "This is how you define friendship, is it?" And he beats the crap out of Iron Man. And Iron Man thinks maybe he's got a shot at this. And of course, he does not. And I want to read just a segment of this. Iron Man basically saying, you need to join and, work for the government, blah, 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 50 State Initiative. And Thor says, "Give your orders and ultimatums to those who obey, or those who are too cowardly to fight, not me. Or learn again the difference between a god of thunder and a mortal man in a metal suit." Absolute perfection. Every time I read this, the hairs on my arm stand up. It's fantastic stuff. And then he says, "Now that your war with brothers have done, I have no interest in becoming involved on either side." And then Tony Stark, his suit's destroyed. He's like, "But how do I get home?" And Thor says, "Walk." So really awesome issue here. So, as we continue on, we see more of Iron Man finding lost Asgardians in the souls of humans and waking them up. And this is really what this, the first 6 or 7 issues is all about. So as we continue on, Thor's kind of adjusting to life in Oklahoma. We meet some new characters, but he's really looking. Where's Sif? Sif is one of the characters who has not kind of been found and woken up yet. And of course, Loki returns, and Loki returns in looking a little bit different. I don't want to give it away. You might see it here in the pages. But Loki returns, and it kind of says, I'm done with that old life. At this second chance, I'd like to, be on the good side, I guess. We also meet this character named Bill. Bill's a young man who lives in Oklahoma and runs this diner. And the town of Oklahoma is getting used to Asgardians living in their town, essentially. So one night, Bill meets this new Asgardian character named Kelda. And Kelda is Kelda Stormrider. She's a goddess who can kind of control the weather. And this relationship between Bill and Kelda is going to be important through this entire run. And let me just pause and say, hashtag Bill and Kelda forever. Their relationship was absolutely awesome. So as we continue on, he's kind of woken up all of the characters or the former Asgardians, except for Odin. Why didn't Odin return? And we get this really awesome issue where Thor enters the Odin sleep, which is now known as the Thor sleep, and he's able to have this conversation with Odin, and Odin tells him why he can't return. And really cool issue. And then we find out where Sif's body is and why she hasn't returned. Donald Blake interacting with Jane Foster. So we split time between Thor and Donald Blake. They can't both be active at the same time. So we'll finish up this issue with Odin, and he awakes from the Thor sleep. And then we go into this arc where we learn a little bit more about Balder the Brave and his relationship and his parentage. And Loki, again, is behind the scenes, whispering in people's ears and spreading mischief and just not great things. Here's kind of that start of that relationship where Bill brings flowers to Asgard, which I don't know if I've shown you, is kind of floating about 20 feet in the air above the plains of Oklahoma. So we get more of Loki just causing mischief and just doing some stuff in the background. He's got deep-seated plans to hurt Thor, hurt Asgard, and just generally do some bad stuff. And we learn that throughout this, Loki's actually plotting with Doctor Doom, which is really interesting. So something happens in this story. Well, actually, I should probably cover this. So like I said, Thor was not there when Captain America died and didn't get to help him, save him, or see him. So Thor visits this kind of monument to Captain America and is able to have a conversation with essentially like Captain America's ghost or something like that, but a really heartfelt moment. So something happens. Loki's pulling some strings behind the scene. We get to find out what Hel is up to. And something happens where Thor is essentially banished from Asgard as it is. And the result of this is that Balder the Brave, again, we learned a little bit more about his heritage, his parentage. Well, he takes over as king of Asgard. Well, during this, Loki is plotting and scheming and is able to convince Balder that Oklahoma is not a great place for the Asgardians. They really belong in a place that is more similar to the Asgardian that they know and love. And he says, I know of this place called Latveria, and the king of Latveria is willing to have us there. So here's this dark reign, the Cabal. So this kind of takes place shortly after the secret invasion events where, some things happen there, and I don't want to give away too much, but the bad guys get a little extra power. So here we get more of Loki talking to Doom, and Balder's there, and they convince him that Asgard is the place to be. Latveria is a lot more similar to the Asgard that they know. It's mountainous, it's cold, there's no United States government to contend with and kind of tell them what to do. And something happens to Thor's hammer. So Thor has to go to his old friend Doctor Strange to fix his hammer so that he can help with what's going on in Latveria. So things slowly go bad in Latveria, and we see Bill, who is now in love with Kelda, move to Latveria with them. But Bill's been on Earth his entire life, so he knows that Latveria and Doctor Doom is not a good thing. So he's trying to convince the heroes that they need to get the hell out of there. Not the heroes, but the Asgardians. So we get this really cool story where the Asgardians are now living there, and we learn a little bit more about why did Doom want to invite the Asgardians into his country. Probably not a great idea, right? The combined effort of Asgard could probably easily dispatch Doom, but Doom and Loki have other ideas. So around the time this story is going on, JMS hands off the title to Kieron Gillen, and we get this story. I've got to be getting close. We get this story called Latvian Prometheus. Actually, before that is giant-sized Thor, and we get a really awesome story about Bill, this human who's fallen in love with a goddess, and I don't want to give that away because people love that story. So in this Latvian Prometheus, we learn that Doctor Doom wants to study the Asgardian bodies and somehow strip away their power. Classic Doom wants to get more power for himself. So Doom is kind of taken these bodies and retrofitted them or turned them into these cyborg things and has turned them against the Asgardians. Of course, this was never going to go very well. Well, Thor, at the last minute, is able to get his hammer fixed and shows up and absolutely decimates Doctor Doom. Or does he? You'll have to read to find out. So the Latvian Prometheus story as this story concludes, we get into the event called Siege. So again, in this story, Norman Osborn is the new leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., and this is directly as a result of Secret Invasion. You have to read that story to find out why he's in charge and why he's entrusted with such power. He also gets his own team that we call the Dark Avengers, and he's now leading a reformed S.H.I.E.L.D. After the Skrull invasion. So he's how is Osborn entrusted with this role, and what is he going to do? As leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's had a few public blunders that have not made him look very good. I think of things like Utopia in the X-Men space that happened before this. but he really needs something to go well for him. And something happens with the Asgardians that he uses to instigate a war. He's going to overthrow Asgard, and essentially destroy it, against the wishes of the president. So this is a really cool story because we see this Dark Avenger team go up against, at this point, we're in the middle of the Superhuman Registration Act. Something happens to Tony Stark in his book that kind of has him down and out. Captain America, spoiler alert, has just returned from in the Ed Brubaker run. So kind of a scattered hero base, right? There's not a solid team that can stand up and defend this. So with Captain America back and Thor back and Iron Man, kind of healing from what happened to him, we get to see this awesome, original Avengers up against this Dark Avenger team. So as this story goes on, we learn that the Sentry is on Norman Osborn's team, and that's, he's hugely powerful. And how are they going to get over this? We see Nick Fury, who's recently kind of come out of the shadows, join up. So this is kind of really a return of classic Avengers and classic Shield. And then when this book ends, I think that kind of starts the what do they call it? The heroic age or something like that. So Norman Osborn, not very smart. Obviously, usually the heroes win, so I don't think I'm giving away too much. But during this, Asgard is totally destroyed. You can see it was floating above Oklahoma, and during the battle, it was just totally and absolutely destroyed. So Osborn's out in public. He loses his position as leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's going to be handed off to Captain America, which you can follow in the Ed Brubaker run. So the rest of this book, after this story kind of ends, and I love Siege. It's only 4 issues. The tie-ins don't really do a lot for it, I didn't think. But the main 4 is a really cool, cohesive story. And again, I think the last of kind of 2000s really good events. So the first issue we get after Siege is a really good issue by Kieron Gillen, and it's Siege Loki. And it just gives some insight onto the seeds that Loki was planting. What was he doing in the background to kind of make these things happen? What was he whispering into Norman Osborn's ear, who now has all this power, but is still crazy, absolutely crazy. So a really cool issue that adds a lot to the Siege event. Then we get Kieron Gillen's Thor Siege crossover issues. And they're good. The art's fantastic, but it doesn't really add much to the story. It's more, we get some more backstory on Kelda, and then we get Thor versus Thor. And if you read the Civil War story, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So after the Siege crossover stories, I think Kieron Gillen only does 5 or 6 more issues in this book, and they're okay issues. It's more just kind of fallout from what happened in Siege and what JMS and Kieron Gillen were originally building. But really cool stuff, really fantastic art. We get an older Skrull story with Beta Ray Bill, and then we get a bunch of extras, some really cool alternative art, alternative covers. There we got Michael Turner before his untimely death, Gabrielle Del Otto, Olivier Coipel, whose art on this was, I think, amazing and is how I will forever see Thor now. But that is Thor by JMS and Kieron Gillen. So why do I love the JMS, specifically the JMS half? The Kieron Gillen stuff was really good, specifically the Latverian Prometheus story, I think it was called. But Thor's one of my favorite characters, and he was gone for 3 years. So when I was at the local comic shop and I saw a Thor book on the shelf, I was elated. And the way JMS decided to bring him back by putting Asgard in Oklahoma, absolutely crazy. And the Asgardians living on Earth with the rest of the superheroes, I thought was really cool. I also thought it was amazing that he didn't loop Thor into all the crazy stuff that was going on in the Marvel Universe at the time, right? The Avengers had just broken up. House of M had just happened. The Civil War, the Superhuman Registration Act, the 50 State Initiative. Like a lot is going on in this era of Marvel Comics. And Thor wasn't thrust back into that world immediately. He was allowed to kind of figure out his own world, and where are the rest of the Asgardians? How do I fit into the world now? Where's Odin? Why didn't he come back? And dealing with Loki and Loki's craziness. That's another reason I love this story, is because we saw classic Loki, the god of mischief, just, making deals behind people's backs, lying, stabbing people in the back. He really drove this story. So yeah, I thought it was amazing. I've read this numerous times. I really love the event that's in this book, Siege. It's probably one of the last events of the 2000s that actually mattered. I think the next one was Fear Itself, another Thor-based event. But yeah, this run's amazing. I think JMS was a fantastic writer. The Kieron Gillen stuff was really cool too. And like I showed you, one of my favorite issues in comics, I think it's Thor 3, where Iron Man shows up to confront him and kind of assumes that he would just join this initiative, and Thor's not having it. I get bumps on my skin every time I read that. But let me know down in the comments what you thought about Thor by J. Michael Straczynski and Kieron Gillen, the Omnibus, and what you thought about the Siege storyline. I'd love to hear it. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next review. Thanks. Oh, and a quick footnote. After the Kieron Gillen run, you should totally read Avengers Prime by Brian Michael Bendis. So Iron Man and Captain America are kind of on the outs after Civil War, and Iron Man and Thor are kind of on the outs based on what happened in the JMS run. So if you just read Siege and then kind of go on to the Avengers, it seems like, well, they're just best friends again. That doesn't make any sense. Well, Avengers Prime kind of allows them to have that conversation and duke it out and make amends to each other, and is a really cool story.
If you're looking for great deals on collected edition comics or manga, we recommend shopping at panelboundcomics.com. They offer free shipping on orders over $30, plus bundled discounts to help you save even more. And if you're shopping from Europe or the UK, comicsbugle.com offers free EU shipping and a rewards program for regular buyers. Don't forget to use our discount codes at checkout.